The diversity in the world is a blessing, but also an obstacle when it comes to teaching an effective education. Catering all these students and maximizing each individual's potential to its fullest is a challenge if we use age to base these classes and grades, which is why we propose to group by competency and intelligence. Now first, a few prongs of setup, we need to characterize students. Students are diverse and study in different ways. The idea of gap in each and every classroom is inevitable if the students were sorted based only from their age. We can see highly competent students not being able to accelerate because their class still has some students that are left behind. In other scenarios, a teacher puts a standard of how well they've taught this class by only looking at this one highly intelligent student, but then overshadows many other students that cannot catch up to that learning material instead, right? The students that are less competent also need to catch up in class. This leads to cheating to happen, or one class being carried by the extremely smart student in class, right? We need to take into consideration as well higher education years. What we mean here is primary and middle school is where these students need to understand the basics of knowledge, the basics of each and every subject itself. Now, if the root itself is not built in correctly, it will be harder for them to actually catch up in high school and eventually harder to get into a university that suits them, right? Now, this proves that arranging students based on age is ineffective since their readiness cannot be determined based off of their age only. Just because a student is older doesn't mean that they are ready to receive more advanced material. Teachers also need to be characterized in the setup. Teachers, it's really hard for teachers to find one studying method can fit all students itself. There's a prioritization of students that teachers focus on teaching the highly intelligent student because they're the one that can catch up with the way that they're teaching in class. Apart from this, we need to understand that not just students have different teaching styles, different learning styles, but also teachers have very different teaching methods as well. On our side, we'll offer a mechanism where the teachers and students will be matched according on how they're comfortable learning and teaching, and this will be done through the multiple tests, not only academically, but also on personality, which will be continued further in settlement mechanism, right? In conclusion, the problem is smarter students don't get what they need and less competent students are being pushed but cannot catch up either way, and that actually creates worse competition where these lower competent students are not even given a place to shine or be able to catch up and compete with the high competent students inside of their class. Teachers are also struggling in finding what material is best to fit all students inside of the class that they teach in, right? So that leads us to our goal. Our goal and team proposition here is to minimize overshadowment in class and instead cater more students based on their understanding. So the quality of education can rise and be better, and we have better human resources as a delta in our side. Now, our mechanism, right? First, schools can collect students' information like background, age, etc., but age will not determine the grouping, right? Second, there will be a test given by the team that creates a national curriculum in order to create an equal standard of academic performance of these students. Third, the scores and analysis from this test will determine which class they're enrolled in. And fourth, note that this test will have more than just academic tests, but also collect certificates and possible interviews, as well as a personality test like MBTI, in order to group the students based on their similar ways of learning method and to decrease bigger conflicts or problems arise in each and every class, right? Now, leading on to my arguments. Why is the current system completely unfair? The students are fed materials based off of their age, where high school students might not be able to read and do simple math, right? Which shows that they should not be despite their age does not mean that they can be taught more advanced material. They have to catch up and are stuck in that grade, right? Despite being maybe completely competent or less competent, the competition in class, these less competent people in class, will still not be able to compete with the class champions. They will never be able to get better if they need to stick to materials that don't suit them in the very first place. The idea that all students deserve education and all students deserve a chance will not actually represent the goal in education, since these students are hindered from getting equal chances because of the way that they are grouped in the very first place. Now understand that first, students with high competency are being pushed down to suit their grade level, whereas the ones that are less competent are getting overshadowed, looked down on, and possibly even being bullied because they're being called stupid by their classmates, right? Even though it's completely wrong, right? Now, second, cheating also shows up as like a delta here because students cannot catch up and the system is not doing well enough to suit their learning methods, to suit their competency and how advanced their materials are, which of course leads them to cheat because they need to catch up with the materials, they need to catch up with the with the levels of how advanced their class is going, where in reality that isn't helping them learn or get proper education in the very first place. Now third, environment also plays a role that shapes these students' behavior. Bullying and problems in their background also plays a significant role here, right? To add picturization, students with special needs, when put in a class with highly competent students, despite their high intellect, the special needs child in many cases still gets bullied, which shows how the differences between these students' competency and even background can extremely affect their behavior. Not to mention, once a child is bullied, competing in class is another burden, like having to stick with a student that not only doesn't accept you because of your background, but also because of your gap inside of competency itself, right? Now, moving on to my next argument here. Another problem that arises is older people, even inside of the work fields, lack basic knowledge and that should have been taught in primary school itself. But because they have always been pushed down to catch up in class, the students don't get proper fulfillment of their skills, right? Even adults with high potential aren't even being given the chances to actually raise up potential when they're still in their educational years because of the way that they're grouped. This leads to uneven competition in getting fully reached potential of human resources as well, which also hinders the development inside of human resources and in that scenario, right? Now, if the government standard for education will not actually be reached if we do follow that age grouping system itself, because this leads there is no improvement and no suitable challenge for students that may be competent because they're only grouped based off of their age itself. And that goes against the purpose of school to improve human resources and actually leads to a very ineffective 12 years of education. Intelligence-based learning is going to be more effective here because then we'll actually be able to group these students based on which way is more suitable for them, right? So the potential that each and every student has will also rise on our side. If the goal of education in this country is also to catch up with international standards and create higher standards in the future, then we need to opt for grouping students based on their age, right? And apart from that, we also need to understand that not all teachers are we cannot rely on only the teachers to be able to help make these students feel more suitable inside of learning process, inside of their class itself, right? Because understand, like I've said before, each and every teacher has their own method inside of teaching itself, right? And if we were to push these teachers, despite on how many ways we try to change the curriculum inside of our education system, if the teachers are still not able to actually be more innovative in this, it will be hard for the students to also catch up in that teaching method and teaching style itself, which of course leads us to need to group these teachers and students based on how they're most effective teaching and learning together, right? Apart from that, also the students itself will not be able to actually fulfill their full potential, right? Like in conclusion here, the full potential because they've always been pushed down to fit their grades, to fit their age, right? Where it's very unjustified for a student that is highly smart to be pushed down to a level that is way below them. Moreover, for a student that cannot even catch up in class, to be pushed in order for them to be able to catch up in class, which leads them to not be able to get those equal chances itself, because the competition that they're competing against is even wrong in the very first place and does not suit them, which leads to the lack of human resources and actual good competition in our side of the house. With that, please side with proposition. Thank you.